Well, I'm going to go ahead and get started. And we're going to record this, so we will have it for people to see later if they need to. All right, so hopefully you've been to the two classes. One is on rules and regulations. That's part one. We also learned that the paperwork we need to secure someone's money is a promissory note and a deed of trust. And then this Tuesday, we went over financial literacy and Rule of 72 and actual return versus average return. And so we need to know those things because the rest of the public is out there and they really don't have any idea what's going on with their money. And that's not everybody, but most people just don't have a clue. They just hope for the best, but most prepare for the worst. And that's why we saw the statistic that 68% of the population is retiring or relying on their Social Security income more than anything else. And we saw in LA County, the average payout is about $1,300 a month, which doesn't even cover most people's rent. So they're forced to have their house paid off if they do, and they're not going to have enough money for maintenance on that house. And that's why we end up buying a lot of these houses, and they're in such bad shape. It's because people don't have the retirement income to keep them fixed up. They didn't plan the right way. So that class is really on understanding terms such as annuities, investment grade life insurance, stocks, mutual funds, bonds, things like that. We referred to a municipal bond where people don't pay local taxes. That helps them save money so they get a higher return on it. So those things are very important to learn, but at the end of the day, you still have to sit down with a client once you get an appointment, and you have to be able to give them a presentation. Very hard to get people to raise capital with people without some type of formal presentation that shows them that you have your act together. Of course, you can get away once in a while with someone lending you money, but what I want you to gain from tonight is I want you to look at the presentation that we put together at Fortune Weavers. I have one I will send out to the people on this meeting tonight that is a kit where you get to create your own presentation. It's generic, but that's where I started. I started out with a generic one, and I moved on to a much nicer one. And then you're going to get to see our credibility packet. As you gain more experience, you want to put together kind of your portfolio per se and what you're offering people when you sit down with them. So we have a professional looking private money packet that we send out and give out to our investors. We are in the process of updating it with the new price lift program, as well as new pictures and things like that. But the old one has done very well for us. Most people don't read it, but it feels good to have something professional that's professionally bound in their hands, and it makes us look like we know what we're doing. The other thing you want is you're going to want a nice website, right? You want something because so that everybody wants to look everybody else up on the internet. So you want a nice website. Most of the time you can do these with free websites. It doesn't have to be anything super special. It's just the fact that you have a website with some examples of your work. And that's just, it's a checkoff box. It's a formality. Doesn't have to be super crazy special, but it just needs to be, there needs to be one. So what we want to do tonight is we want to go through this presentation as if you were somebody that I was presenting to. Okay. And I see that we have more people on here. So we are going to go ahead and get started. All right, so this is the Fortune Weavers private lending program. A program sounds much better than I'm just trying to get you as an investor. A program means generally there's more than one investor, and we want to portray that. We want them to know that they need us more than we need them. And when I sit down with a new client, I make sure I tell them, I say, why is it you feel the need to invest your money in this type of investment? What's been your track record? What's been the history? Most people have had a bad experience with their portfolio, and that's why they tend to come our way. It's because that somebody didn't do something for them that they promised. And, we have a lot of people that are out there claiming that they're going to earn their 12%. And it's just not true in most cases. Remember, the reason why someone's stating that they can get 12% is because that's what's legally allowed under the Securities and Exchange Commission's regulations and under FINRA. The most you can say that you can get a return on a mutual fund is 12%. Anybody stating that they can give more is breaking the rules. And that is in particular to that market. We have something called usury law on our end, where when someone's lending us money, they're not supposed to collect more than 10%. So we have to be careful with that. And that's why we try to make everybody our friend, because when it's our friend, it doesn't matter so much. But when you're cold market recruiting people to invest with you, you just have to be careful because they could call you out on it. So again, this is our PLP program. It's our private lending program. And we want people's money to outgrow their nest. You've heard of a nest egg, right? Ours is a house egg money house or something like that, right? We want them to make lots of money with us, better than they could earn in the stock market, or in most cases, their CDs and their money market accounts. For you and for your sake, it's really nice to know that there's a home office. So there's an office, it has Fortune Weaver's name on it, and there's the address so that they can actually go find you in the event that they have questions. If you're working at your house, obviously you're not going to have this yet, but right now you're piggybacking off of Fortune Weaver, so you can actually show them in your presentation. Obviously you're going to get a copy of this. You can actually show, hey, we have a home office, and it's someplace that you can go, because people will say, well, what if I have a problem? What am I supposed to do, hunt you down? No, you can come to the office. Okay, something very important when you're giving a presentation, especially one where you're offering an investment, and that's what we are doing. We're offering them it's an offering, is to have a disclaimer. And this says, please carefully consider Fortune Weaver's investment objectives, risks, and associated costs or expenses before investing. Real estate investments are not guaranteed or insured, and past performance is definitely not a guarantee of future performance. Please ask questions and ask for more information before you consider any investment. And I highly encourage people to seek help from their attorney. Okay? If you have any questions, you can bring your attorney in and I'll answer any of their questions as well. Hold on real quick. All right. Trying to get through some of these issues people are having. All right, I'm going to keep going. So you have to have a disclaimer. Andrew Carnegie, I like to talk about him as being the #1 philanthropist in the world of his time. He gave away 90% of his assets to charity. That's why we have the Carnegie Library and Carnegie Hall and things like that. He was, during the Industrial Revolution, he was the guy that was the richest at the time. He would have been considered in the top 1%, and was a very wealthy man. And he states more millionaires have created their wealth through real estate than any other endeavor. And then sometimes I go into how he sponsored Napoleon Hill to write Think and Grow Rich, and why, where he believed that even the average person could become wealthy if they took on the characteristics of those that were already wealthy. Excuse me, this thing keeps going on its own. And so you need to, if I were you and I wanted to learn how to bring in investors, spend some time learning about Andrew Carnegie. He's a great story, and he truly believed in real estate. And he talks about more people have made money in real estate than any other business endeavor, right? But he made his hundreds of millions of dollars Sorry, guys. This thing keeps going. He made his millions and millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars at the time in business, not real estate, but then learned that he could invest the money in real estate and do very well. Franklin Roosevelt, real estate cannot be lost or stolen, nor can it be carried away. Purchased with common sense, paid for in full, and managed with reasonable care, it is about the safest investment in the world. Now, we're not saying it, but Franklin Roosevelt did say it. So you can use that third party as, hey, I'm not saying it. He's the one saying it. It's about the safest investment in the world. And that's a great statement for us to use. So when people go, well, I don't even know what you guys do. Well, here's the cycle. Okay, we acquire and rehab and sell real estate. We fix up ugly houses. And we borrow 100% of our funds from people like yourself. Okay, that means the purchase price and the repair costs. We borrow that all from our private lenders. We are the skill, and we have the ability to get you higher than average returns on your money as a result. The properties we find are in need of repair. They're either rental properties that tenants didn't take care of, or they're properties where someone has not had the money to keep it up, or there's a fire, or sometimes there's major issues, foundation included. I like to go in and to say, we've done over 50 properties with major foundation issues. Okay, we market heavily to owners that need our help. Sometimes I'll go into how we market with direct marketing, door knocking, okay, and things like that. I'll talk a little bit about what we do as a strategy, because they're very curious. Most of these people have seen TV. They've watched Flip or Flop or some of the other shows. And they're really curious about what we do. They're just not willing to get dirty every day. They'd rather just invest their money, and that's the whole purpose, is for them to be passive investors and not active investors. Right? We pay our private lenders 10 to 12% based on program choice through our private lending program. And as you know, we're going to update this with our price lift program. I don't know that that's going to be a permanent program, so I don't want to pretend like it is. For now, it's a program that we have where we offer not 10 to 12% annualized, but we offer a 10% flat every time they invest their money, which if they did it twice a year, it's 20%. Which is a really high rate of return. And the risk we run when we start talking about those types of returns, people associate a high return with high risk. And so when you start talking 20%, you'll start to see that people sometimes go, oh, that sounds really risky. So this is what our program offers, but sometimes we want to curtail our program to what people are comfortable with. So if someone said, so you always want to ask, so what would be a good return for you? And if someone says 7%, give them 7%, maybe give them 8%, give them one step higher. And we can curtail this presentation to that. That's very easy to do. The private money packet's a little harder, but that can be done as well. Minimum investment should be about $50,000. And that would be, and now with the price lift, obviously it can be less, but most of the time it's 50,000 or more. So our typical property, we generally buy between 2 and 6. Sometimes we'll go as high as 8. On special circumstances, we'll go up to about $1 million. But for your sake, when you're doing this presentation, you don't want to talk about millions. We are our focus is on entry-level homes. Homes where a first-time home buyer is going to buy it, because no matter what happens to the market, there's always people moving from apartments to houses. We want to stay in the same range as FHA, right? So that there's programs where they have low down payments and they can get into these houses, and we'll always have an ample supply of buyers for the houses no matter what happens to the market. Because even in the crash, you can take people back in time. Obama sponsored a program where people they were able to capture, I want to say it was like $8,000 or $9,000 towards their down payment when they bought a property. We focus in Los Angeles and Orange County. We are expanding out to the Inland Empire and areas like that. Definitely Riverside County. So again, these are things we can add to this presentation, but our main focus is in LA and Orange counties. See, the thing you got to understand about an investor is they don't want to have to go drive to Palm Springs to go check on a property. They don't want to have to drive to Bakersfield. So those are things we do with investors after they've invested with us for a while and they trust. But a new investor, they want to know that everything's local and close. They don't have to work for checking up on you because they're skeptical already. That's just that's just human nature per se. Our typical repair costs are between 30 and 75,000. That's average. And I tell people that once in a while we go above 100. Not very often. Depends on the extent of the project. But you as a new investor, we're going to keep you on something that's going to be, in this range right here. Again, the investors that are going to go higher have been with us a while, and they've allotted more money towards our investments in most cases. All right, homes are generally 2 to 4 bedrooms and 1 to 2 baths. Again, we're entry-level homes. That's what we're focused on. And time to renovate is between 45 and 180 days on average. So that's average. Once in a while, we'll see something go longer than 6 months. Sometimes it's a year. But on average, in most cases, you can see that your money's going to be liquid in under 6 months. Now, 45 days is obviously a very light rehab. Here's how it works. We locate a potential property or a deal. We notify you, our lender, of the potential investment. So we're not going to send it to everybody. When you're next up, you're next in line, you get the offering. If you pass, you have to understand you generally will go to the bottom of the list because we're not giving you anything that we don't think is a great deal. So you're just going to kind of go on this rotation. If you're not ready to invest, we understand. But just know we need people that are ready to pull the trigger right now because we have under 2 weeks to close on this. And if you can't wrap your mind around it, then this might not be the type of investment for you. Again, you always want to do the takeaway, right? This has to work for both of us. When the property matches your investment parameters, you give us notification of purchase. You say thumbs up. We purchase through escrow, and you become the first or second lien holder on the property. I got this question today. Someone said, and I think it was Donna. When someone is investing with us, are they in a first or second position? Well, that depends. If they only have $100,000 to invest, they will not be in a first position locally. If we buy maybe out in Bakersfield and something that's really rough, maybe, or Barstow or something like that. But those are generally buy and holds. On a flip, they're never going to be in a first position with $100,000. I would say to be in a first position, minimum, probably $300,000 in this particular market, and that's low end. Most of the time we're going to be in that range, between the 2 and 6. I haven't seen a property at $200,000 in a while though. All right, so basically send out something like this. It's an email, investment opportunity, loan request $220,000. It's a second position. You make that clear. We call it gap. I like to explain what a gap lender is, and I tell them a gap lend. So the person who has the bigger chunk of money is going to go into the first position. If they have, right, like this property in particular, if you look at it, there's an investor in a first position at $285,000. So the person with less money is going to go into a second position. We need $40,000 to fix it up. When we sell it, it's worth $6,000. It's a 3-bedroom, 1 bath. So I explained that a gap is kind of the money between the first and the second, and they're the ones that do our rehab, our holding costs, and things like that. Once you explain that, people understand it. And we just want to make sure that we don't over leverage your money, so we stay at a loan to value that's acceptable. So in this scenario, the private lender on this would receive $2,200 per month if they chose the 12% program, right? So 12% annualized on $220,000 would be $2,200 a month. It's not bad at all. I'm going to let you look at that for a second. Again, this is done through email. If you feel like, some people that they don't have email, you have to go drive to their house and you got to talk to them about it. All right, moving on. We also provide them with a financial packet that backs up our numbers. So this one has the address. It's very professional looking. Sales price 600,000. Our purchase price was 440. Kind of a tight deal, right? If you look at it, if it goes 6 months, the net profit was 57,000. 5 months, 61. You can see even if it goes a year, because they're going to say, well, what happens if you can't sell it? Well, even after a year, we're still netting 29,000 after we pay you off. Oh, okay. Right. So if you look over to the right, you can see 12% annualized. You can see kind of has all our numbers built in, and then the profitability is where it says profit. It has all of our numbers built into this. I'll let you look at it for a second. And again, over here, it's just the first loan and the second loan. So we want them to understand that they're going to say, well, how do you secure my investment? And you guys should all on this webinar know that it's promissory note secured by a deed of trust. The promissory note does not get recorded. It gets signed. The deed of trust gets recorded at the county recorder's office in the county of the property. And that is what secures their interest. They become the bank or the beneficiary on that loan. If we were to sell, refinance, or anything of the nature, they would be the ones that would collect money before we ever did. It goes in order of first, second position before anybody else gets paid. We can add them to our hazard insurance policy as additionally insured, and just protects them in the event that the house burns down or something like that. They get notified. Title insurance is definitely on the property when we buy it. We purchase title insurance, so we have clear title. There's no worries there. There's no encumbrances on it when we pick up these properties. Those all get taken care of. We're going to do an appraisal. Again, this is up to us to kind of figure out if we need to. In the old days, especially starting out, I would always get a full appraisal to back up my numbers so that an investor felt good about it. And it was a future value appraisal, not an as-is appraisal. And usually my numbers were within about $5,000 of that appraiser. And that really made the investor feel comfortable, like, you know what, we weren't over-evaluating the property. Like we see with a lot of wholesalers. They'll tell you that the property is going to sell for $7 when it's really $620. So that's why an appraisal is really good. Now, an appraisal costs money. I was able to get them done for about $250, but the average appraisal right now is about $350,000 to $400,000. And our investors have no expense. So, in a traditional investment, you heard us talk about the other night about a 2% management fee. And that is to do the admin, the paperwork, for someone to invest. With us, the only fee we're paying right now is really the recording fee, which is about $200 to record the deed of trust. And that is an expense we need to incur as a company. We do have investors say, hey, no, you know what? I'll take care of that. I'm just thankful that I have an investment with you. So I've seen it done both ways. But we're going to go ahead and publicize that they don't have any expenses. Here's the process. You guys should know this well. There's an investment, so we look up who the investor is. None of us have Rolodexes anymore, so we're looking in our phones or our CRMs, our contact managers. Have our private lender. Okay, on a deal, we draft our promissory note and our deed of trust. That's the document securing the investment. We use their money to purchase the house. It's ugly. We fix it up with their money, or we rehab it. Generally, we're not wholesaling it, but we have done that a few times where we just decided, you know what, even after we bought it, you know what, we can make more money wholesaling this. I don't want to deal with the rehab for whatever reason. And that's after we've paid cash for a house with an investor's money. We make lots of money. That's the money falling from the sky after we sell it. And we make sure through that process that our investor gets their check and they get paid. And they get paid before us. That's what we need to stress. At 12% interest. Rare. I've had a few times where people said only 12%, and they're usually people that are already trusted investors and they charge points and things like that, most of the time illegally. But the average person, when you tell them that they can earn 12% secured, they're really happy with that, because it is, guys, that's double-digit returns. That's much better than the average person's ever getting, and they should be thankful. And if we do price lifts with them, even better, right? Because they're getting in on the 20% if they do it twice a year. And then just repeat the process. So added protection of your investment. Golden rule: investor funds will never exceed 85% of the property's fully renovated value. And that 15%, we try to keep it at 80 actually, but that it's really hard to do in this market. But that 85%, that means there's 15% margin. So let's factor that in on a $500,000 property. Okay. So we would never exceed 85%. So that would leave us on a $500,000 property. 15 times 5 is 75. That would leave us with a $75,000 margin. That's our protection. So as time goes on and we can't sell it, a little bit of that's getting eaten up every month with mortgage payments. Okay. But usually you can reduce the price to where you need to if you did your formula correctly, where you're still going to make quite a bit of money and everybody wins in the end. So remember that number. We never exceed 85% of the future value. And added security, we don't ever over leverage your investment. And that's why you'll see me say no to a lot of deals, because our number one objective is to protect our investors. Only takes one to go south and it could ruin your career. So as we wrote this presentation, there was 3 program choices. So I'm going to kind of go over them a little bit. Program 1 is 10% fixed return. So what we were doing with this is if somebody wanted to get paid monthly versus wait till the end of the project, we would go ahead and pay them 10% annualized and hire FCI Services, which is a loan servicing company, to bill us every month, make the payment, and so they'd get their monthly income. Now, this is something very important to people in retirement. They can't wait 6 months to get paid. So they need the monthly stream of income, and so that's where this comes into play. Still applies. That's why we say the 10 to 12. GAAP, 12% fixed return, and is annualized and paid at the end of each project. So usually that's at the end of 4 to 6 months on average. And I've fluctuated on this. This is the equity split you see in your analyzer. At the end of the day, I really believe it shouldn't be a 50-50. If I were to have someone put up all the money, I'd give them a 40% return. Now that is negotiable, but you starting out, I would encourage you to go 50-50 with people. So if they put up, let's say you have a project you bought at $500,000, it needs $75,000 rehab, and there's holding costs, and you're borrowing $600 total, and you sell it for $850, and there's a $75,000 gain, then they're going to get 35, and you're going to get 35, which is really high in this business. But when you're starting out, you need investors, so you give them what it takes so you can be successful. Again, minimum investment, we like to keep it at $50,000. So remember that when you're out talking to people and they're going to ask you, well, what could I start out with? In general, it's 50, but sometimes we have projects that require less, and maybe you can start there. So we know right now CDs aren't offering very much. And when someone invests in a CD, a certificate of deposit at their local bank, 100,000 makes it a jumbo CD, a little higher return. Okay. So here's kind of how this works. So usually they're at 1.3, 1.5% right now. So after 12 months with 100,000, this person's going to walk with $1,300 in profit. And to some people, they think that's a lot, but when you're in retirement and inflation's eating you up, it's just not going to cover it. And in fact, I wouldn't want 1.3% in any fashion. The positive side of a CD is it's FDIC insured up to $250,000. That's a good thing. I guess that makes you sleep well at night. Problem is, a lot of these CDs, if you do an early withdrawal, they penalize you. Not all of them do, but a lot of them do as well. Okay. And with our program at 12% on that 100,000, if they kept it invested the whole time, they'd make $12,000. And if they invested in our price lifts with 100,000, in a perfect world, they're never going to invest the whole amount the whole time. Theoretically, they can make 20,000. So if you look at that on this, just with our 12% annualized versus a CD where most people have their money, it's a difference of almost $11,000 in that year. And that surpasses inflation or anything else that might be thrown at them. A bank's 6-month interest penalty for early withdrawal, $650. So even though you were slated to make $1,300, they're going to take half of it, right, as a penalty because you took the money early. You broke your contract. And with us, there's no withdrawal penalty, right? We just ask that you give us enough time to replace. I usually tell people, give us 30 days so we can try to replace the funds. You know, if you know, and it's happened. We just had an investor who was buying a house and they said, hey, I need 50,000. Okay. We figured out a way to get them their 50,000. All right. So just give us some time. Make sure you give me some advance notice if you would. Happens. You guys learned the other night, Rule of 72. We're going to go ahead and go over that in the presentation. And this is something that's very important. Most of the time, I've already talked to someone about this. But this was Einstein, Einstein came up with this. And really, it is a formula to show how quickly someone's money will double depending on the interest rate they earn. So you simply divide the number 72 by the expected rate of return. So in our case, if we're investing 12%, we divide 12 into 72. And their money will double every 6 years. Now, if they invest if they're earning a return of 6% on their money, divide 6 into 72, and you'll see their money double every 12 years. So let's say somebody, and I'm going to pull out my calculator here, somebody's earning 1.3%. So I take 72, divide by 1.3, and their money will double in about 55 years. Well, by the time their money doubles, they'll probably be on to the next world that they live in, where they go next. All right. So Einstein says those who understand interest are desired to earn it, and that's compound interest, while those that don't are doomed to pay it. So let's look at the chart here. So if you take a 40-year-old, okay, 40-year-old here, and they invest $100,000. Okay, you can see that their money doubles. If you divide 4 into 72, the answer is 18. So their 100,000 would double in 18 years. So that 40-year-old is now 58. His money's doubled. Okay, and again at 65, when he's going to retire, he'll have 271,000. We see a lot of people that would love to earn 10%, but if they were just to stick with our monthly payment, their money would double every 7.5 years. 10%, 10 into 72 is 7.2 years. So at 47, they're at 200,000, 54.4. And at 65, 25 years later, they would take that 100,000 all the way up to 1.2 million. And they would actually do this if they could keep the money invested the whole time, but they don't have any fees. Difference in the average 403B or IRA or 401k, that there's these fees. There's this 2% management fee. And that's how money managers make their money. Asset managers, we call them. And that's when someone is asking you to invest with them and therefore in a 401k, they make money every year on that investment. We call it, it's a compound reoccurring income. And any of you have looked into active money management, it's a beautiful thing, because if you can manage $30 million and earn 2% on it, it's good living. I'll let you do the math. And with our program at 12%, doubles every 6 years, that same 40-year-old over 65, the 65 or the 25 years would have almost $2 million off of the 100,000. So imagine if a 40-year-old had 300,000, they'd have quite a bit of money at the end when they decide to retire, and then they could lend their money and just live off the interest in most cases at this point, depending on how inflation is eating up, pricing at that point. So I'm going to let you look at this. This is my favorite part of this whole presentation because most people don't understand it. But the difference on your return is very important. And maybe I should throw in here the 1-point-something% that a CD offers, because that's where a lot of people I sit with have their money. I talked to someone last night and said, hey, I have this trust account. I'm only earning 1%. Yeah. You're losing money because inflation is actually working against you every single year. It always has, always will. And that's where you go, okay, what did you pay for a stamp 30 years ago? What did you pay for a house 30, 40 years ago? I talked to a lady that 50 years ago bought her house in LA for $7,000. That same house today is $500,000-$600,000. And that's due to inflation. That's all that is. We call it appreciation, but it's really inflation. Housing markets kept up with inflation. And some people say, well, how could I ever afford that house? Well, the person that lady I talked to that bought for $7,000 was having a hard time making, a $75 a month payment or something. It was very difficult for them back then. So again, it's all relative. So once you have these conversations, people go, oh, you're right. Okay. So that's why it's important to earn that 12%. Can you imagine if I threw in the 20% with the price lift? So let's do that real quick. Let's do our math. 72 divided by 20. It's 3.6. So if they got to double every 3.6 years, and I divide that 25 by 3.6, because that's how many years they would have 7 doubles. So here we have one. Over here on the 12% side, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 doubles. Right? So they would get another 3. So you would see, this turn into, closer to 10 million in that same period of time. That'd be great. I don't know if I want to keep offering 20%, but man, that's really going to help the people that are investing with us. That's for sure. And then we want people to understand about a self-directed IRA. They can take their old retirement funds, roll it into a self-directed IRA, and they can invest with us. And it can be a retirement account. It doesn't. So most of you know that people have 401k, so they can take an old 401k, roll it into a self-directed 401k, and invest it in our projects and kill it with our returns. Okay, it gives you, just so you guys know, it gives you about 1,000 more investment opportunities. Most people's investment offers them 4 to 6 different funds that they can invest in. There's different strategies. This thing allows them to invest in business, whatever it is. If someone wants to invest in startups, they can do that. Right? We have one we like to refer people, that's Equity Trust Company. It's because they've been in business a long time. We had someone say the other night that they prefer something a little more local. So that's fine. We have UDirect, that's local. We have Entrust, that's local. We have some others. There's 2 different types of self-directed IRAs. There's a custodian-driven, that where they take the money, they hold it, they make sure that they control the paperwork. And then there's checkbook control, where you actually get a checkbook and you can write checks out of it as your own, as an individual investor. A lot of people say that's dangerous. I would probably leave that up to someone that's a little more sophisticated versus the average person. All right, returns have the potential to be tax deferred or tax free. If you have a Roth self-directed IRA and you're flipping houses, it's a very powerful thing. Or it follows the same rules of any type of investment. So the same thing goes. If you have a deferred tax, you have to take it out by the time you're 70 and a half, right? You have to start taking a minimum distribution. You can't touch it till you're 59 and a half. Otherwise, you pay penalties. How about some tax-free earnings at 12%? How about that? The one question I get a lot, obviously this is when I used to drive a Prius, is what happens, Mr. Weaver, if you die? Well, the great thing about being a part of a company like ours is there's always someone else that can step in and make sure the projects get finished. But I've gotten this question a lot. What's worst case scenario? Well, worst case scenario is I pass. I get in a car wreck. The great thing about working with Fortune Weavers is you have a team of people that know how to do this, and they can just pick up right where we left off and make sure your investment is fulfilled. Why hasn't my financial planner told me about something like this? This is one during the crash. Relax, my broker says the economy will bounce back. I am your broker. Look, he's the homeless guy. Okay. So when we talk to people, what's my next step? Set up a one-on-one private meeting today, discuss your investment details. So sometimes this is given to a group. Matter of fact, I prefer it. Option 2, do nothing. This isn't for you. Maybe you know someone you feel it would serve better, right? We hope you decide to join our team. Questions. Okay. Before I move on to the next segment, I'm going to kind of open this up for some Q&A, because I'm sure some of you have questions about what I just went over. And if you can't think of any, that's okay. Maybe you can text or email me later. But I'm going to go into the financial packet next and kind of explain what it looks like. And then I'm going to show you what I'm going to send out to you guys tonight. So Q&A, just go tap on your computer where it says Q&A. You can type a question in there. It'll pop up on my screen. Nobody has any questions. All right. Well, if you think of one, make sure you use that Q&A and I'll come back and I'll answer it. All right. So I'm going to pop out of this. And I'm going to, this is the one you guys are going to look at, but I want to show you our private money packet. So we paid quite a bit of money. Hang in there, guys. Not sure what just happened. Okay, I should be back. Thank you for those of you that notified me. All right, so this was something, again, that we had made, and this is our financial packet. Let me get to where it shows you one page at a time. Yeah, so this is something that's 17 pages long. Talks a little bit about our company, our history. Okay. So you can see I need to change this. We're not a young company anymore. Anyway, it goes into our integrity, our ethics, the cornerstone of our values, and our relationships. I truly believe those relationships are so important. What we do, education, property management, investments, and fix and flips. Maybe in our next one, we'll talk about legacy planning or something like that. Those two quotes are actually from two of our investors. Okay, this goes into what private lending is, understanding equity, trust deed, or a deed of trust, because these people don't know what it is, what we refer to when we're talking about after repair value, ARV. Why invest in real estate? And the high return is really important. Security, diversification. All right. And you can see the investment is funded at 75% or less of the current market value. That's on the purchase of the property. Real estate tends to have less volatility. If you look at the top of this page, we can control a lot of things. That's what I love about it. I like to talk about control. Additional safeguards. Your money will never be pooled, so we don't have a bunch of pooled money working together. It's usually people in a first or second position. I prefer usually to have someone in a first, and that's it. We have multiple exit strategies. Talk about this, just the different things hold on, let me get that back. Are there many investor borrowers? Percentage of cash real estate transactions, we saw it rise. Actually, you can see from 05, and we had the crash, and then this is something, again, I'm going to update. Different exit strategies over here: flip, rent and hold, lease option, wholesale, refinance. Usually there's a way out if needed. That's what you want to tell your investor. Can I invest using my 401k or my IRA account? Goes into self-direct. Can I invest if I live in another state? Of course. Right? Can I invest if I live in a foreign country? Very carefully. Okay. Term lending program. So you can see this goes over the different types of, this is the rule of 72 and explained. It's really cool. So it goes into 5% versus 12%, what that turns into over that period of time. Term of loan, we always give ourselves 12 months. I used to give myself 6 months, and it would hurt me because we'd go over once in a while and people would say, well, now what? So what you want to do is you want to keep that at least at a year, and then you can modify it. You can adjust it as needed. And even in the year, we give ourselves an extra 30 days. And this is most case, right? This is what we do most. Interest rate 12, payout schedule, end of term. Hey, Matt, remember Ryan Jan Inman? Cash flow, right? That's with if someone wants to invest in our buy and holds, we offer an 8%, 3%, or 3-year and a 10% 5-year. Okay. Then we have some case studies. Now this is going to blow your socks off. This is in Compton. Bought it for $165,000. It's not that long ago, guys. $165,000, $25,000 rehab, $265,000 sales price. That same house would go for over $400,000 now. This is just a few years ago. West Athens Boulevard, purchase $110,000, $100,000 rehab, $325,000 sales price. Crazy. South Manhattan, which is just I want to say on the other side of Western, $180,000 purchase, $38,000 repairs, and that was converting it from a 2.1 to a 3.2 back then. Sale price $315,000, $100,000 profit. Here's one we did in Carson on Spicer Road. There's a $15,000 repair, sold it for $290,000. Crazy. This is all we did is put granite in here. The cabinets were already there. That's why it was only a $15,000 rehab. We used to use a lot of travertine. We bought them in large amounts, and we got a really good price on it. So I tried to use it in all the bathrooms. So if we go back on a slide, you'll see this is all travertine. It was popular at the time. We don't use it anymore. It's not so popular. It doesn't go with the color schemes that people like today. If you guys remember, the glass mosaic backsplash was real popular. Not so much anymore. People like the white subway tile better. All right. Still use the drop-down hoods, recessed lighting, same handles we were getting before. All right. How do I get started? Building a future together. We want to paint a picture of the future. Again, this needs to be updated, but this is the package. So for you guys, I'm not going to expect you to create a real big packet. You might want to create something that's 3 or 4 pages long. You don't have to, it doesn't have to be something like this, but you can go to fiverr.com. Upwork is another one where you can hire virtual assistants to do it at a substantial discount. You know, they'll put something like this together for under $100, and it's hours and hours and hours of work. So we'll have ours modified. But what I'm going to send out to you guys is I want you to start with a very basic presentation. Okay, this is something I paid for years ago. I don't remember what I paid for it, but when I got a raising capital kit by a guy back then, it was real popular. And this is kind of the color schemes and everything that was used. There's no imagination with this. All right, private mortgage investments, the name of your company. You're going to have a disclaimer, right? I mean, this is templated, so this is very simple. I just want you to spend the time and create your own. Figure out what you want to offer people. You don't need to offer as high as 12%. You can probably get away with 7, 8 very easily and save yourself a lot more money. First and second programs, company overview. You know, you can talk about your partnership with Fortune Weavers. More millionaires. Again, they had that quote in there already. Okay. I'll let you kind of read this. At the time, they were offering 9% for a first and 12 for a second. People sometimes would assume that a second was more dangerous, so they wanted a higher return. We typically use your money for 5 years, but we can offer shorter terms. We're not going to, we're on a fix and flip, we're not going to take it for 5 years. So you're going to want to get some people that have worked with you through us that are going to give you some support, and that someone can call and say, hey, how was your experience working with, you know, the name of your company? And those people go, oh, it was great. Matter of fact, I'm reinvesting. That's what you want to hear. Okay. This is about right. So you can see the same rules apply. Then this is back in the mid 2000s, maybe late 2000s. It was before the crash, I would assume. Okay, you're not going to put someone in a first at 50,000. Just know that, not in California. This is a template that was used across the country. And these people are willing to do monthly, quarterly. I would go possibly monthly, but probably at the end of the project. So end of term. They're paying a point. We don't pay points. And they're using the money for 5 years. So you're gonna create something that works within our system. Seconds, 5,000 minimum, 12% interest. You can't offer, and they can't do 12% in most cases because you're not a broker, and you got to be careful with that whole thing. And this is up to 95% LTV. So this is probably, you know, this is the kind of the second money to make sure the project gets finished. They're offering 2 points on that 5,000. Early withdrawals are fine. Simple interest, and 12% if you choose, blah, blah, blah. Look at this, guys. So when this was done, CDs were earning 4.7%. So that person who invested the 100,000 in our model over there, and our presentation would have earned 4,700 on that 100,000 versus the 1,300. So you can see how things have changed, and it will go back up to that at some point. And I like how they said this. That is over 200% better than the bank CD. You know, we'd have to figure out what we are at 12%, but it is probably around there. You got to figure out what your average purchase price is. Some of you are going to want to hang out in luxury land, and some of you are going to want to hang out in not so luxury land, which is the low-lying fruit, the low stuff. I have no idea where Montgomery or Chester County is, so you got to figure you're going to probably be in LA, Riverside, San Bernardino, or Orange counties. Some of you, if you're in California, obviously, if you're out of state, you're going to be doing something different. How about this repair cost? I would love it if it was $8,000 on repair cost to 35. 35 they're showing as a max. That's how it was in the old days. You know, we're seeing something much higher. I think ours was at 75,000 on average. So I'm going to send this to you guys. Okay, so and you just all you have to I don't want to do that. All you want to do is create yours out of this, or you can copy and paste some of it into your own template and make a nicer looking one. This is really ugly. And for those of you that like it, I apologize. Okay, recorded at the local county office. It's an interesting way to say it. And then they were adding the people as additionally insured. There's nothing wrong with that. Compare private money versus hard money lenders. I don't know why they would do this, because this person is going to go, well, they get 15. Why can't I? They're charging 5 to 10 points. You know, why can't I wouldn't do this. That doesn't make sense. You're just showing someone what they're not getting. They would go into appreciation. You may or may not want to do that. Again, you can see this stops in 03, so that's when this was probably made in 07 or something like that. I don't think you need something that's this long. You know, who you are you married, you have kids, people like that stuff. If you have an MBA, good for you. Doctorate, even better, right? Background information. You know, do you have different roles in your company? If not, kick this part out. Core strengths. Yeah, right. People want to be shown. They don't want to be told what others are saying. Okay, so I have a website. Remember I said the website is actually something that's pretty important. Okay. All right, so this is something I'm sending out to whoever's on here. I get to look at that. Oh, and I have a question. Let's see, what about traditional 401ks that a company contributes to? For example, I have a friend who works for Fox and they insert about 6%. Should she get a Roth IRA or just invest the amount she's in the existing 401k? Okay, the right answer to that is I love the fact that they're at least putting away 6%. What I'd want to know is the company matching? And what are they matching up to? So there's some hard questions that this person probably might not know. Understand that people should be investing 15% of their gross income. So 6 is not going to be enough at all, or not even close to what they're going to need in retirement. So understand that. Should they get a Roth? That's a good question. So, it says they're matching 3%. So this is a match probably up to 6%. And that's why they're only that's why they're only getting 6. Yeah, what I would do is start. They generally can't use the money they've already put away if they're currently working for that company. It's 90% of the time they can't pull money from that account unless it's a hardship pull. That's a little embarrassing. They got to go into their HR and say, hey, I'm having a hardship. I need to borrow money from my 401k. Not everybody's willing to do that. You know, I happen to have unique friends that do. They don't care. I just educate them and they go, I don't care. I'm going to go in and talk to them and get my money. But a traditional 401k, if they leave the job, they can absolutely do something with it. But I would also encourage this person to create a second investment, an IRA, and start putting money into it. You know, they can't take from this one, but they can definitely start adding another one, and they're going to need more. So I'm not sure if that answered your question like you wanted, but they can't probably touch that 401k, but they're not putting enough money aside, so they need to put more, and I'm sure you would be happy to use it and give them a return, especially if they're a friend. Perfect. Thank you. All right. So that's it for tonight. So I'm going to leave this open for, that's a great question, by the way. And I love the fact you're already talking to someone about a 401k. And Andrew, I'm not surprised because I can just tell that's who you guys are. So excellent job. We should all be having conversations with people about their 401ks and their investments. As much as it's a taboo subject, we have the cure. If you had the cure for cancer, would you keep it a secret? I always say that. No, no. We have an amazing system here to help people get a high return on their money. And it's silly not to tell them about it. It's our own fear, our own ego that gets in the way. So start to share this with people that they can earn these great returns. Make sure you remember that you need to talk to someone at least 3 times, have 3 forms of communication before they become your friend, and document it. Document it so you protect yourself from maybe a jealous relative that's going to turn you into the SEC and make it sound like you were aggressively, making this person your prey to invest in your whatever scheme that they think that you're trying to get them to invest in. So protect yourself there. This isn't a scam. Our investors love us. That's why they keep investing with us. Matter of fact, I have people going, okay, when's the next one? And so you want it to be like that. All right. So any more questions? Q&A mode. All right. If there aren't any more questions, we're going to go ahead and finish this webinar. Guys, I can't stress enough that you need to raise capital to be successful in this business. It's so important. And you should always be having conversations with people about investing in what you're doing. And you get to use borrowed credibility with us. So have them invest with us. Even if you don't have a project, get the money working. I just had someone, we're about to finish. We have a property selling in 2 weeks. That investment came through. That wasn't their project. But now those investors are like, let's go again, right? And so that's what you want. If you know somebody that has money, even though if you don't have a project, get them to invest with them on somebody else's. We'll figure out a way to compensate you. You should get compensated for that. All right, that's all I have for tonight. You guys have a wonderful night. Thank you for your patience with a little bit of different communication with the Evite. I'd like it to be an Evite where we RSVP. That keeps track for me versus me sending an email and not knowing who's going to be on and who isn't. So obviously we had lower numbers tonight as a result, but that's okay. You guys got a great webinar, and those that didn't get on it, they missed out. All right, you guys have a great night. We'll talk soon. I got to jump on another conference call.